Welcome to the High Value Sales Show of Eversprint.com. I'm Malcolm Louie, the managing member of Eversprint, and today we're speaking with Glenn Frank, the president and owner of Fort Collins Heating and Air Conditioning, a provider of residential and light commercial HVAC sales, service, and installation. Welcome to the show, Glenn.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Glenn, you grew your company's revenue from 4.8 million in 2014 and 9.6 million in 2017, a 99% increase. And in 2018, you hit around 10 million. Before we talk about how you grew your company so fast, can you briefly share what your company does beyond my quick intro and how your company differs from the competition?
Sure. We have focused really on a target market that is local and not spreading out too far. Getting good at our niche, which is, like you'd mentioned, residential repair and replacement and light commercial repair and replacement, and also maintenance of all of that. Focusing equally on our culture and the employees, which I believe are our internal customers. As we grow an organization, it's very important to keep the company culture strong, which is difficult and challenging, especially in a competitive market where, companies are competing for employees on a high scale around here. So unemployment is very low and employees have a choice. And we're also in a market where, there's a shortage of talented, skilled tradespeople. So, and then, we've really focused on branding ourselves and done consistent marketing and advertising with radio. We came up with a jingle that we play on the radio a lot, repetitively. That's worked very well for the last 10 years. We've really stayed consistent with some radio advertising. And then our trucks are very visible in the area. They stand out.
All right. Now, in terms of the service that you provide your customers, how does it differ from another HVAC company that I might be able to find via Google?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest thing is we always do the right thing. We are obviously a for-profit company, so we have to make a profit, but we don't. I have a zero tolerance for salespeople or service technicians trying to sell something to the public that they don't need, or being dishonest. That our industry is unfortunately has some of that reputation, and we do not participate in that. So we're very honest and forthcoming when it comes to advising people whether to repair versus replace, and only replacing parts and things that are necessary, not overinflating our prices on things that the consumer is maybe vulnerable to. So really just doing the right thing and being honest, and we got a lot of return customers, so we don't have to rely heavily on gaining a new customer all the time.
And as an end consumer of your services, how would I know if what's recommended is the best option? Right? I mean, I'm not a HVAC expert by any means, right? So if you'd say replace it, I'm not going to know if that's really the best option or not.
Sure. Yeah. No. And our whole sales process, we have part of our sales process is explaining to the customer how to pick a contractor, what to look for, whether they choose us or someone else. We help educate them on what kinds of things they need to look for when choosing a contractor. When it comes to knowing whether or not you should replace or repair, we'll show them the findings that we find and, give them proof, or leave the parts behind that we've replaced. Sometimes we'll leave them behind so that they, if they've got a friend or something that can verify and test that it was bad. We have nothing to hide. We don't take the part with us.
Right.
Typically. And then just our reputation. And then I think when on the sales side, we offer something very unique called a 1-year test drive that is, as far as I know, not very many other companies around here anyway offer that. And what it is once someone makes a decision to purchase with us, and let's say it's a $10,000 or $15,000 replacement system, they have 1 year to test it out and be satisfied, or we'll buy back that system and give them 100% of their money back.
No, that is very unusual.
So the risk is really on us versus them. And because I think that what happens a lot of times in this industry is, the consumer may feel pressured or influenced to buy a new system, and then they fork out a lot of money. And then when do you realize that you made a mistake or picked the wrong contractor or you got something that you're not happy with? It's always after the fact, right?
Yep.
It's afterwards. So, and that's kind of a scary thing, and it's a risk that the homeowner takes when they choose a contractor. So we've removed that risk with this 1-year test drive program.
Right. Has anyone ever taken you up on that guarantee?
Oh yeah, a couple times. If we can't make them happy, or for whatever reason they regret buying it. It's happened, I think, maybe 3 times total. The one that stands out in my mind is we went back several times trying to make this customer happy, and as it turns out, he has a medical condition that he's very hypersensitive to smells, and the furnace after it would run for a while would emit some smells from the PVC pipe that's venting the flue gases. It was just off-gassing of this PVC pipe. So we changed out the PVC pipe to something different, and we did all kinds of things. And we had the factory come out and try to make this customer happy. We couldn't make them happy. And we'd been out there so many times, it was costing me a lot of money. I was actually kind of glad to buy back the equipment and let him go somewhere else.
Sure.
Because it was just a drain on us,
Yeah.
So that's one situation.
Did that person ever find a solution that worked for him?
Well, I don't know for sure. I didn't hear from the customer, but I did hear from the company that took over from where we left off.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, the owner came to me and said, if I would have known that it was you guys that couldn't make them happy, I would have never touched it. So,
yeah. Well, that person was a very unique situation. And if you're hypersensitive to smells, that's a challenging one to fix.
Yeah. And we offered a different solution, a different type of system, and he didn't take us up on it because he wanted that gas furnace. I was trying to offer him an electric heat pump option, which would not have the combustible gases in the house, and he didn't want that option.
Right.
So the salesman for this other company promised him that his furnace brand wouldn't emit this stuff, which just wasn't true. It wasn't the equipment's fault.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he bought into that, and I assume they probably still had similar complaints or issues.
Yeah,
I guess.
That's a tough problem, right? I mean, it's the nature of the design using that type of system that you outline.
The comfort in the end is that the consumer knows that they have that option to exercise if they want.
Yeah, it's a great option, right? It's because, like you say, people don't know if what they're buying is going to be a good fit for them, nor do they know if the contractor will be delivering what they promised. Not just in you in particular, but in general. So having that guarantee is it's comforting and it's unusual as well.
Sure. And the risk is low for us because if we're not trying to sell somebody something they don't need and oversell them, the risk is very low for us. So, we do have a certain amount of risk, but it's really low.
Yep.
And, it holds us accountable too, because, we're not creating a bunch of situations where people have buyer's remorse or find out later they could have bought it for, $5,000 less or, something like that. So it really gives them the opportunity to even price check us afterwards and, ask for it after the fact. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, when we bought our car, we used a new company called Carvana. Right, it's an online used car marketplace, and they bring you the car, and you can test drive it for 2 weeks, something like that. And if you're not happy with it, they'll take it back, no questions asked. As long as you drive it fewer than 400 miles in that 2-week period, they're okay with it. Something, it's reasonable. And
right.
We chose one car, and it didn't meet our expectations. Right, it's underpowered where we're living. It's just too hilly. Right, you'd be flooring it and it could just barely make it up the hill. And it was like a hybrid car, right? So not a total shock, but we weren't happy and we swapped it out and bought another car through them, right? And
right.
if they didn't give that guarantee, we might not have bought from them to begin with. And if we did buy from them and weren't happy with our purchase, we probably wouldn't have done the second transaction with them. So yeah, that guarantee, those sort of guarantees are great. So, and it builds goodwill as well.
That's a very similar guarantee because, and it's brilliant because, the trust is placed on you and you feel that they trust you. So, then you trust them to make another purchase. So it's not like you took the car back and went somewhere else probably and bought. You probably chose another vehicle from them, I'm assuming. Is that right?
Yes, we did. And we just swapped it out. And we didn't even take the car back. They deliver it to you. So it's really easy. They delivered the car to our driveway and then it was done. And then when we wanted to swap it out, they came back. They brought the new car, the other car that we bought, and just took it off the flatbed and put the other car on top, and off they went. It was seamless, pretty easy.
No, that's very similar approach.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like you say, it really builds buyer confidence. So your company, you grew really rapidly. You pretty much doubled the business in 4 years, 4.8 million in 2014 to around 10 million in 2018. You touched a bit about the drivers behind it, but maybe you can recap what the 3 biggest drivers were of your growth.
Well, it was good branding and marketing. It was over time that we've been doing. Another big factor that I may not have mentioned was, it's always good employees. It's not like I did it all myself, and I made a very good hire around that time. A guy named Mike who was exiting another business that he was sort of partners in, but never really came to fruition. I'm not sure about all the details, but he had a pretty good following of business and was more involved with the new construction side of things. And so we added new construction to our business, and he had a couple of contractors that followed him when he came over. So I hired him, and he brought a few builders with him, a few customers, clients in the new construction area. And we were able to really serve them well, and our reputation was enhanced that we were capable and very good at the new construction side. So it gave us a new market. And then we most recently have added plumbing to our offerings, so that it's going to boost us as well. And right now, oddly enough, we are attempting to not grow too much because we're just really trying to, after this rapid growth, really trying to really dial in all of our operations and make sure that our culture, employees and our processes and procedures are really dialed in so that our customer service doesn't falter at all. And that's really what we're trying to focus on right now. So even though we're trying not to grow, we'll probably grow $1.5 million in revenue this year. But we've pulled back our advertising and offers quite a bit this year.
So the second driver, hiring good employees, and was the third driver expanding into new markets, new services?
New markets, yep, new market, correct.
Okay. So you mentioned new construction and also most recently plumbing.
Plumbing, yeah, adding plumbing.
Now, why wasn't plumbing part of the mix from the very beginning? Oftentimes, HVAC companies do plumbing as well. Is that right, or am I mistaken?
No, oftentimes it is, and some companies even offer electrical, so they all offer all three, but they're all very different animals. In HVAC, there's a certain amount of electrical and a certain amount of plumbing that we do. Like we've always done water heater replacements and replaced boilers and work on serviced hot water boilers. But when it comes to plumbing, all-encompassing plumbing like drain and waste and water piping and stuff like that, it's really a different animal and takes specialized staff and a knowledge base that I didn't have extensively. It requires different licensing and certifications and stuff like that. So when I started the business, I didn't have that depth of knowledge. So when we added it, we had to hire a master plumber and my operations manager, myself. We've had to learn a little bit about code requirements and different types of business requirements that are required to run a plumbing company.
Right, I got it. It is a totally different business that you're in. Now, your business is at 10 million in 2018. What's your guesstimate as to what percentage of the market you have in the Fort Collins area?
Yeah, in the Fort Collins area, I would have to say we probably have maybe 10 to 15% of the market, which I would consider pretty good market share, dominant market share.
Okay.
But in the offerings that we offer, I think we dominate and have a pretty good market share.
Mm-hmm.
There's areas that we haven't gotten into, like commercial refrigeration, things like that. That the commercial construction, we're not anywhere close to even having a sliver of the market in that area. So there's different niches that we don't dominate in, but residential service and replacement, I think, is where we dominate. Right.
So are you the biggest competitor in those areas, or is there someone who's bigger than you still?
You cut out just a little bit. Try that again.
Are you the biggest player in the areas where you specialize in, or is there someone else who's bigger still?
Yeah, I think we're one of the largest companies in town when it comes to employees. We're probably the third or fourth largest HVAC company in Fort Collins. The ones that are a little bit bigger than us are more in the commercial, and I think they're spread out further into different demographics. We really stay close to home in the Fort Collins and immediate surrounding areas. So when it comes to Fort Collins and the immediate surrounding area of, Fort Collins, Loveland, and Windsor would be the kind of the Tri-City area that we're in. I do believe that we have a dominant market share there, and that we're the largest player in that area.
Mm-hmm. So the biggest driver you mentioned was a good branding, good marketing. You mentioned that you had a jingle that you play on the radio all the time. What is your jingle? What is the thing that you've been running so long now?
So we have our tagline is big enough to serve, small enough to care. And about 8, 9 years ago, maybe more than that now, my son, who's now 15, but he was, he had a little kid's voice at the time. He recorded singing this jingle. Fort Collins, heating and air, big enough to serve, small enough to care. And so that plays all the time on the radio at the end of our, and it's just a very consistent messaging. And so much so that when people see our truck or they hear the name, they sing this jingle afterwards. And so it's really something that's been ingrained into the subconscious of people, whether they like it or not, in this area. We've even had calls to us saying, please take the ad off the radio. Have you ever had a jingle that you just can't get out of your head and you sing it all the time?
So where is your jingle playing?
The jingle plays on the radio primarily.
Okay, what stations have you found have been really effective?
Just kind of the mainstream stations. We play on all the clear channel stations around here, which so different genres, country, pop, and easy listening, and also a news talk radio show on the AM side. There's about 4 or 5 radio stations we play on.
Have you found any particular radio stations and type just doesn't work? Classical, for example? Are your customers listening to classical music?
I don't think we're on a classical music station. We're on radio stations that people listen to at work, in the car, and then we're also like on Pandora as well.
On Pandora. How does that work? I don't use Pandora so much, so I don't really know what the ads are like. So if I'm streaming music on Pandora in the Fort Collins area, they will insert your ad here and there?
That's correct.
Very cool. And how does that compare to radio advertising in terms of pricing?
It's cheaper.
And Pandora, I imagine, can give you a lot more better analytics than the radio station, right? They can tell you exactly how many people listen to it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, if there's anybody listening that is a smaller business, radio is not something that I would suggest being a part of your marketing campaign in the beginning. It's something that you don't get immediate results from, and you would need to have a strategy similar to mine where you have a consistent message and branding, like a jingle or something, and you stay in it long term.
Right.
Not something that you would run a ad for 30 days and then pull back and see if it works. You get nothing. You won't get any trackable data. So radio is something that you add on later and stay consistent.
Right. It's more of a branding and top of mind thing as opposed to generating business right away.
Correct.
So Glenn, for driver number 2, you mentioned hiring good employees, and you also mentioned before how unemployment's really low in the Fort Collins area. Has that been a limiting factor in your growth? So you simply don't have enough bodies to service your demand?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's probably the biggest restrictor in our growth is being able to hire enough people. We've got way more demand than we got supply of workers. So we have been recruiting for, at least that, I think constantly, consistently for the last 6 or 8 years, even offering sign-on bonus, $5,000 sign-on bonuses, getting very creative on where we advertise, how we advertise, what our ads look like. Our marketing has really shifted. Our marketing strategy has really shifted into more of a recruiting strategy. So that is absolutely the limiting factor. Now, we also have to be able to scale and grow the company to match that. So, like I said, right now it's probably a good thing because we need to get a few structure pieces within the company internally in place so that we could grow responsibly.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about growing responsibly and restructuring processes, are you referring to restructuring the processes so you can get more people on board, or just fine-tuning what your people are doing currently?
Fine-tuning what people do in their job duty every day. So we have written procedures so things don't get watered down. What I was noticing during our growth was one person would know how to do something and it was all inside their head. Yep. And then they would move on to some other position, either moving up in management or, laterally, or leaving the company, or, multiple different things would happen. And then the training would get watered down. So some of our processes were getting diluted in how we do things, kind of like the telephone game when you start a conversation at one end of a line or one end of a conversation, and then you allow it to go down the line, it comes out the other end completely different.
Right.
And that's what I was experiencing within my company was, how we processed a call, or how we answered the phone, or how we coded things in the accounting department, and how we, all kinds of things were just, getting changed or diluted or watered down. And so we had to just kind of take a time out and go, okay, how did this happen? It's not the employee's fault necessarily. We didn't have a good guide, a manual, I guess, if you will, to follow.
How big is your company today?
We have about 72 or 73 employees currently.
Yeah. How are you keeping track of all the things that 72 employees are doing to identify those areas that can be improved?
We have regular management meetings, and we identify. We kind of scrub through the business and then find the top 5 things that we need to do, and we work on that and get those done, and then we survey the employees or the customers, and we find out what's happening. Get an external view into the company from, like I said, either employee, staff, and or customers, and then we get that perception and look at that and we go, okay, how do we address these things? And then we come up with the strategy, and then we address those things, and then we just keep re-scrubbing and re-innovating those things and work on them a little at a time. It happens overnight.
Right.
It's a slow process.
Yep, got it. And for the third driver, you talked about adding new lines of business. So you had the new construction side from a new hire from Mike. You recently added plumbing, and your other category, you would just call that residential type work. Would those be the 3 categories that you're working in?
Well, the 3 categories, the 3 offerings, I guess, that we let's see, think about this for a second, make sure I understand what you're saying. So we do HVAC, residential, light commercial, replacement, and service. So we have like a service department that handles, HVAC and plumbing. And then we have like a retrofit, or what I call a retail division, direct to the consumer, that does, HVAC and plumbing replacement. And then we have new construction that offers plumbing and HVAC to the new construction industry, primarily residential, a little bit of commercial. I don't know if that is clear or not.
Okay, so I guess the dimensions range, I guess, on 2 axes, right? You have customers who are either residential or commercial, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then in terms of the offerings that you can do, you have the plumbing you talked about.
Yes.
You talked about the new construction, which you do for both residential and commercial, or just for commercial?
Yeah, so I would picture it this way. We have plumbing and HVAC, and that exists in three realms: service, retrofit or retail, and new construction.
Okay. All right. So
We have three divisions basically.
Yep.
Of where we do work: service, replacement, and new construction. And then plumbing and HVAC exist in all of those.
All right. So service, replacement, and then new construction. Okay. And then plumbing and HVAC is across all those. Okay. So 6 different boxes then.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay. Is there another service that you're thinking about adding further down the line? Electrical, for example, you mentioned how some companies do that as well. Is that something that makes sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we will offer electrical at some point, along with solar, because it all kind of goes into the energy consumption bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And we're excited to do that, but we want to make sure that we do it at the right time, that we can handle it. And we've got adding plumbing is our hands are full at the moment right now with that, just getting our arms around that. So one thing I'm big on is I want to do everything right, like I mentioned earlier in the interview. And so it's not about just growing and growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger, and we want to do it right. So we want to make sure that we master whatever we're doing before we move on to something else.
Right. So for 2019, you mentioned before that you've kind of reined in the growth a bit. You're not running ads as aggressively, not making as many promotional offers as much. You're still thinking you're going to do grow your business by 10 to 15% this year.
Correct.
I know you talked about one of the key things you want to do is improve your processes and challenges. On the marketing and sales front, is there anything in particular that your team needs to overcome to hit your 10 to 15% growth target?
There's not a lot to overcome because the 10 or 15% growth will happen pretty organically with the basic marketing that we're doing, which is SEO. Our online, I would call SEO, is becoming less important. It's important, but organic ranking used to be very big, but it's becoming less important now with all the different things that Google is doing. But I really try to stay up on all the latest digital marketing trends, because that's where ultimately you need to be these days.
Yep.
And so we really focus on making sure that we're up on all of that stuff, getting online reviews, placing ourselves in, really watching closely what Google does. Google really controls a lot.
Yeah, it does.
They dictate a lot. So you have to learn how to play their game. And but the nice thing I will say about Google, though, is I think that they are committed to. I think they've done a really good job, which is why they're out in front of making sure that people don't play the system too much.
Yeah.
That it's a fair playing field, and that, for example, we realized when the internet first came on heavy, and we had an advantage because our town name was part of our business name, and so Google looked at that as the way the search engines worked. That was a real benefit.
Yep.
We happened to benefit from that, but it didn't take long before Google realized that, hey, Fort Collins Heating and Air Conditioning doesn't necessarily deserve to be in number one position just because they have the town name in their name. And so that began to change, and as soon as it did, we adjusted to maintain that position. If we didn't adjust to maintain that position into other, align with different algorithms that Google was doing, we would have fallen very quickly from a top position.
Right.
But I will say that we did benefit in the beginning from that. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I'm not seeing pay-per-click ads running for you with my tools.
That's right. Yeah, it's, I'm glad you noticed that. We we do very little pay per click because we focus so much on organic uh, population,
Okay.
and then Google Places. What is it? I get confused with their terms of their um, Google My Business. I think is what it's
Hmm.
called. That's doing really well for us. Um, and then the reviews and uh, our SEO, our organic ranking is working well. But like I just said, the organic piece is going to become less important in the future.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't. Google doesn't make so much money from that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the what's the newest one that they've just launched? Google. Let's see. Google. Is it Google My Business or uh, the top three positions that are? And it's not offered in every market yet. They're just rolling it out. By
Mm,
the end of this month, I think it'll be everywhere.
right.
Uh, I've been watching that pretty closely, and we'll be participating in that. But it'll be much cheaper than the AdWords.
Right. But still, if the costs of running AdWords is, when the customer acquisition cost is low enough running AdWords, shouldn't you be using them? It might be more
In our
expensive than other
industry, the
channels.
AdWords are very high, very expensive.
Hmm.
And if you have a good website and you're ranking well organically, um, we'll use AdWords in our shoulder season. But because part of our strategy of not trying to grow too fast, it just doesn't make sense to spend thousands of dollars on AdWords a month.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
The return on investment is just low.
Yeah. So you found that the ROI from your radio spots are better than AdWords.
Well, again, like I said, it's really hard to track radio
Yeah.
because radio doesn't end up getting the credit. People never say, "Oh yeah, I called you because I heard you on the radio." I
Yep.
don't ever hear that. Um, but I do know that it's working because people are singing the jingle, and that's the only place they'll hear the jingle.
Yeah.
So it's radio is something that is you're buying real estate in the subconscious mind with radio,
Right.
and you can't track the subconscious uh, activity, like you
Yep.
can digital marketing and stuff. So I know it works, but you have to go out on faith that it works. You have to understand the the way that the brain works and the way that things work, and you have to be willing to spend the money over a long period of time.
Yep. Yeah. My first interview, in fact, he and his father run a weekly show on AM radio talking
Mm-hmm.
about investments in the market, and he found out to be a fantastic source of new clients. Um, Definitely pays for itself. He spends 500,000 a year, something like that, to buy airtime for his show, but that show is generating for him 500,000 a year of new business. So it works out well. It definitely can work. You just need to find the right market, right message, and right purpose as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's a strategy behind it for sure.
yeah, definitely, and it works. It's worked really well for him. Three last questions for you. Um, One, have you tried billboard advertising? And if you did, what was your message? And if you didn't, what would be your message?
So I haven't for a while. When you say billboard, I'm assuming traditional billboards on the road.
Yeah, on the road, on a freeway, the ones that people only have about 6 seconds to see before they drive by.
So I don't do a lot of that, and there's a couple of reasons. The sign laws in Fort Collins, there are no billboards in the city limits,
Okay.
so they're all outside the city limits. So there's very little opportunity. Number one, we do have some bus stop benches and uh, panels around the bus stop shelters that you can advertise on. I have tried that a little bit. Um, what I would suggest that people consider if they're going to do it is you can't put too much information on a billboard. It's got to be just eye-catching and branding.
Yep.
So there's branding messaging, and then there's direct response type of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So for a bigger company, like us, I mean, it starts to make sense, kind of like radio. If anybody's listening that's starting a small business, I would make sure I'd like to try to emphasize that kind of advertising is not what you do.
Yep.
In the beginning, because it doesn't pay back well enough. The best type of branding and marketing advertising they can do is wrap their trucks with a vinyl wrap that's very clear and concise and very well illustrates what you do. And a lot of small companies don't do that. They like to drive because they're driving their personal vehicle or they use their work truck as a, family / work truck. And,
right.
And so they like to not have their advertising on, but that's probably the best advertising. The biggest bang for the buck that we see is truck wraps.
Right.
And, but to get back to your question about billboard advertising, well, Chick-fil-A does a good job with their cow.
Cow versus
hanging off the side and of like putting up a sign saying eat more chicken. That is eye-catching, and it's branding, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And there's no offer like you don't run offers on a billboard. It's just got to be strictly branding. And so top of mind awareness. Again, it's like radio. You're buying that subconscious mind. So when they are hungry for chicken, they think about where to go. Or they are in the need for heating and air conditioning. Who are they going to think of when they think of heating and air conditioning? You got to be synonymous with that thought. And so that's what billboard and radio does. And unfortunately, you have to have a pretty big budget to do that.
Yep.
And it eliminates some of the smaller players, but.
Yep. So I think from what you share with me, it sounds like for your billboard message, it might even be your jingle that your son sang at a young age.
It's still 10 years later is still very, very effective.
Yeah, it's a good one. And it can be used in so many different markets as well. And everyone wants that. So that's good.
We've also tried TV. Comcast is our local cable network around here, and we did a bit of that as well. It's expensive, and but in the day and age now, with people being able to, fast forward through commercials and watch on demand and stuff, it just didn't seem like a good return on investment for us.
Yeah. If I'm a typical consumer, I don't even have Comcast or any of those subscriptions, right? I just have Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, right? That's pretty much all I have.
Yeah.
So
yep, you're right. Cable's dying for sure.
Yep. All right. And the two last questions I have for you. Who are your ideal customers? And I know you have 6 buckets, so feel free to talk about the 6 categories of your ideal customers. And what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, our ideal customers are, people that have a need to be comfortable in their home, or their business. And I would say the masses, we really focus on the masses, not the elite, if you will, or not the top income earners or whatever. It's a business mentor of mine once said that you sell to the masses and live with the classes. If you sell to the classes, you'll live with the masses. So I always remembered that and thought, that's where the bulk of the opportunity is in the masses. So really just your average, income earner, homeowner, that's where we focus.
Okay.
And it's, ultimately it's whoever wants to spend money, with you, but that's where the security is, because that at market. It's not affected largely, if the market goes up or down or whatever, you focus on that middle masses of people. So.
Yep. Yeah, another person I interviewed had a similar strategy, right, for multifamily apartments. Right, he found that the B grade apartments were more resilient during downturns, right, because people living in the A grade units would downgrade when times are tough to the B grade, whereas people in the B grade, when times are tough, they don't want to go down even further, right? So they kind of stick around where they are. So definitely targeting the masses makes sense. So, all right, and the best way for those folks to reach you, phone number, website.
Yeah, I was losing you a little bit there. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. And the best way for people to reach you?
Okay. Yeah, Google, internet, and our phone number is 970-484-4552. And we can be found on the internet at FortCollinsHeating.com. It's all spelled out, FortCollinsHeating.com.
Right. Got it. It's been great having you on my show, Glenn. I really enjoyed hearing how you grew your company so fast.
Yeah, it's been good. I enjoyed talking to you. Appreciate it.
We've been speaking with Glenn Frank, the president and owner of Fort Collins Heating and Air Conditioning, about his company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing, high-value sales companies, or to learn how we can accelerate your firm's high-value sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.